Hi there, I'm Super Sue Finneron, and this is the Get Your Shit Together podcast. Of course, SHIT is an acronym for success. I forgot what it is. It's success, health, inspiration, and transformation. See, I'm put on the spot and I lose my mind. Now you'll notice this beautiful creature sitting next to me is the fabulous Mia Jerritt with Integrated Life Strategies. And Mia is a coach and someone I've known for a long time. And I'm so glad to have her with me today.
Thanks, Sue. Such a pleasure.
Excellent. Today we're going to discuss fear, the dreaded fear. Do you have fears, Mia?
I'm scared of this conversation.
It's actually me she's scared of. No, just kidding.
I have lots of fears. Just saying.
Name one.
I'm afraid of going to yoga class with really long, hairy legs. Or like.
Oh. Wow. I wish I could take the camera down and show your legs.
They're pretty tan right now. No, I do. Like, we all have fears, without a doubt. I mean, it doesn't matter how courageous you are, you still have fears. Some fears are just more realistic in terms of, like, they actually manifest or they're tangible. And so many of our fears just live in our head.
Isn't that the truth?
Yep.
Yeah, that damn monkey mind.
Yep.
It gets ya. So I was thinking about fear and when it starts, because like what you're saying about when you're born, you're born fat, naked, and happy, right?
Yeah, I always like to say you're born fat, naked, and happy, and we learn to be scared and worried about our body shape and our body weight and all those types of things. You know, we learn those.
Yeah, exactly. And so, fear is one of those things we learn. And when you go outside, your parents go, "Be careful." Don't you wish they say, "Take more risk"?
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
Yes.
I think someone must have said that to my brother when he was a kid. Take more risks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Boomer does some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Just for those of you that don't know, a Boomer is a fabulous photographer, and he travels all over the world capturing what he sees.
Yeah, and he has lots of broken bones to prove that. Someone somewhere along the line when he was a kid said, "Go out, take lots of risks."
I love it. So one fear that I have that came from my mom, of course, is snakes.
Mm.
And, she sees one and jumps like 85 feet in the air and screams. So I learned that when I see a snake, I need to be scared.
Mm-hmm. And what are you scared of?
Well, that's just it. I mean, I guess they're slippery. They're actually not slimy because I like to try and conquer things that I'm scared of. And so whenever I see a snake, in a strip club or on the side of a street, like a big boa, just kidding about the strip club. But,
oh, no, she's not.
Okay, it happened once in college. Oh, no.
That's another story. That's another podcast.
Anyway, I make myself go and, touch them so that I still haven't gotten to the point of putting a boa constrictor around my neck. I guess that would be the ultimate for me. Mm-hmm. But I try to make a point of conquering that in little pieces.
Yeah. So if we talk about fears in terms of something that doesn't live outside of us, because those types of fears are very different than the fears that live in our head, right?
Very true.
So what is a fear that lives in your head?
Well, I mean, even just this podcast is a fearful thing for me. We put it out there, and you're thinking in your monkey mind, well, what about if nobody listens? Well, what about if I sound stupid? Well, what about if nobody likes it? What about if I fail? Failure, obviously, is probably one of the biggest fears that most people have, I think.
Yeah, and, just listening to you from over here, that sounds like a fear of like rejection, a fear of the word no, a fear of not being accepted, and all those types of things.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely.
And the super interesting thing about all of those fears is where do they live?
Well, in your monkey mind.
Yeah, and how do they come to be?
Well, I learned them.
Yeah.
Now I just have to unlearn them.
Exactly, and that's the cool thing about whatever you learn in terms of fears, you can unlearn.
Did you hear that, everybody?
Yeah.
You can unlearn it.
It starts with one thing, and the first thing it starts with is awareness around the fear. If you have no awareness around the fact that you have that fear, what that fear is, where it came from, what it looks like, how it feels, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So the awareness piece is critical.
Do you find that a lot of people are not aware of what they're fearful of?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Most people have no idea. And they cloak it in armor. And the armor might be ego, it might be perfection, it might be procrastination, it might be blaming, it might be lying. It's all our fears are cloaked in these strategies that we put in place. We don't even know we do it.
Yeah, procrastination is a big one for me.
It's a big one for a lot of people.
I procrastinated this. Right?
I don't know. I would almost challenge you on that. I'm not so sure that you procrastinated on it. It didn't quite evolve. It evolved into this. It didn't start as this.
It did, but I even procrastinated. I recorded the first episode like 5 times. Perfectionism, procrastination, and finally I went, okay, enough's enough. I've just got to put it out there into the universe. Yeah,
and the other thing about that particular strategy, the perfectionism strategy, is that it very often lives in the same box with perfectionism. So people that are in the perfectionism prison that they create for themselves, procrastination is a great way to put off what they don't think they can do perfectly. They'll just keep putting it off. So that's another thing, another awareness piece. A lot of people go, oh, I never even thought of that. Like, I am a total procrastinator and a perfectionist. And if you really pull it apart, they are very, very intertwined.
Yeah, big time. I can totally see that. Yeah. I this morning, my stepdaughter's here home from university, and my partner Dave was here, and they were going for breakfast. And he goes, "Yeah, Lauren saw the equipment and said, 'Well, what are you doing with that?' And I said, 'Oh, we're doing a podcast.' And Dave goes, 'Yeah, but nobody's allowed to hear it.'" So this weekend I have to rip off that Band-Aid, and it's him that I'm scared of hearing it.
And why is that?
Because I really put his opinion very highly in my life, and he's constantly pushing me, and I know that he'll be honest and tell me what he thinks, and maybe I don't want to hear it.
Well, what does he want for you?
The best, I know.
Just saying. Don't shoot the messenger.
Those damn gigantic Band-Aids.
This isn't supposed to be a coaching conversation.
Well, no, actually, I think it's useful for people to know how you coach. Mm-hmm. And know what that process is like, and to see maybe somebody else go through those sort of questions and how you bring up those things and all that sort of thing, and maybe they'll decide to go, have someone coach them, mm-hmm. maybe yourself, or maybe they'll be able to work through it themselves. But I think it's useful. Yeah. So obviously, fear is only how much power, or is only a problem if we give it a ton of power.
Say more.
So if we know fear and we acknowledge it and we go, yeah, I'm kind of scared of that, but I'm going to work through it, it's not a big deal. But if we go, I'm totally scared of that, and it renders you, paralyzed, so to speak.
Yeah.
So if you give it more power, it will paralyze you.
Yeah. And how do you give it more power?
Well, you think about it more, don't you?
Well, you hide it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so when you hide it and there's secrecy and there's judgment and it lives in your head, that's where all the power around your fear lives. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you start shining a spotlight on your fears by talking about it, by admitting it, by looking at it, by exploring it, by researching it, that fear becomes like a shriveled up, it just like shrivels up. It loses its power. It becomes easier and easier and easier to talk about it, to look at it, to pull it apart, to get interested and curious about it. Like, where did that come from? Where did it start? And that is how it loses its power.
Yeah.
You bring it out into the sunshine, basically.
Just acknowledging.
Yeah. Acknowledging.
And
yeah.
being aware.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. So, I was doing some reading on fear before we came, and one of the things I read was that 90% about what we worry about never happens.
Yeah.
That's a lot of energy.
Our fears take up the majority of our energy. If you think about it, I had a really cool conversation with a client yesterday, and she's completely disconnected with self. No idea why she shows up in her life the way she shows up. So we started having a conversation, and interestingly, she does a lot of work with like landscaping type work.
Yep.
And so I gave her this really cool analogy about living in your head. You create this pathway to the weeds, and your neurological pathways become like super highways, depending on where you go in your head. So the pathway to her weeds is like a super highway. And those weeds are every single thing that she's afraid of, ashamed of, guilty about. And they, of course, where do they live? Back there in the past. So I challenged her to consider creating a new pathway to the flowers, right? And to start watering her flowers in her head. Like, I'm actually really good at this. And I remember that time I actually surprised myself by what I was able to accomplish, whatever it happens to be, right? So the challenge for your audience and for this person is to really consider allowing the pathway to the weeds to start growing over.
Yeah.
And to really start wearing down the pathway to the flowers.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that analogy. It's very good.
Thank you.
Now, another thing, of course, is energy, right? You know, you talk about that highway. But if you're a positive person and you have positive energy, I think you're more likely to deal with fear in a better way, or a more managed way, so to speak.
That's an interesting concept. Not sure that I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think as a happy, positive person, I think a lot of times when you're a happy, positive person, you just cloak it in a different way. You cloak it with optimism, or what like misdirected optimism.
Yeah.
Or, it doesn't matter if you're a positive person or a non-positive person. If you have fears that reside in your mind, we have strategies that we put in place to protect them.
Okay, fair enough. But if you're looking at fear and you're going, okay, I'm scared of snakes. And if you think of negative, they could bite me, they could squish me, they're slimy, I don't want them to touch me. But if you think of positive, you think, oh, actually, they're kind of cute, they make nice boots.
I like Crocodile Dundee. Oh no, that's crocodiles. Never mind.
But if you, maybe snakes on the positive side is a bad way to look at them. But I'm just thinking that if you can look at your fears in a more positive note, like what might happen in a more positive light than a negative light, that's where, and I understand what you're saying about if you're positive all the time, you cloak it.
You can.
Yes, I can. No, yes.
It might be a strategy. Yeah.
Yes. But I also think that if you look at things with a more positive attitude, you can kind of overcome your fears more.
But no, actually, the train of thought that you're on is super interesting. So just to recap, what I heard you say is that if you look at a fear from a positive perspective, then it loses some of its power?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a thought around that. Again, if we back it up 2 steps, you cannot look at a fear from a positive perspective without awareness.
Yes.
So again, it's like, if I could say the first step in any coaching, revelation, breakthrough, breakdown, is awareness.
Right. And acknowledgement.
Because you have no choices without awareness.
Yeah.
That's where it all begins. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're afraid of snakes, and all of a sudden you're like getting very clear in your mind. Yeah, okay, I definitely have a fear of snakes. I'm afraid of snakes because my mom was crazy and she had one around her neck, and she used to tie my brother up with them, whatever it happens to be. So then, but until you start breaking that apart, you can't make the choice to go, hey, wait a second, maybe I want to be a little kinder to the snakes or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? That it's a pretty simple explanation or example, but relevant.
Yeah. So, I mean, another thing is or I'm in life, I'm always trying to find a way to say yes instead of no. And to physically say, nod your head and say, find a way to say yes. And fear is, finding a way to say yes through your fears is pretty taxing and challenging at times.
Yeah. Well, interestingly that you say that, because some people's fear is a fear of saying yes or a fear of saying no. They have a total fear of saying no to anyone or anything because it's a people-pleasing quality, right?
Yep.
Which is just interesting to share. I want to just take you back to your fear of, you said failure. We're not going to use that one because I think everyone has, to some degree, a fear of failure.
Yeah.
But you said you were afraid to put the podcast out because you were afraid of what people might think, or nobody would listen, or let's use that one, that maybe nobody might listen. So every fear has a strategy in place to protect it. So what would one of your strategies be to protect that fear?
Well, she's making me work here. Well, I mean, what did I do? I just decided that it didn't matter if anybody listened. I was going to put it out there. And wouldn't it be nice if somebody did listen? That would become a benefit instead, because I'm enjoying the process of learning how to do this, and I'm enjoying what I'm learning as I get ready for them, as I sit down and talk to you. And so I'm going to let that outweigh the thought of nobody listening.
Sure.
Is that... I'm not getting to where she wants me to go. I know it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you skipped over the question.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Okay, say it again.
I noticed
Let's go again.
Okay, so the question was, what is a strategy that you had in place to protect you from that fear of nobody listening to the podcast?
Well, I didn't put it up. Did I get it that time? Okay. Yeah, I'm a bit slow.
And so, and what did you do to not get it up?
Well, actually, funny enough, the first time we recorded, and I don't know if this was subconscious or not, but the first time that Mia came over to record, I couldn't get the mics to work. And I'd had them working the day before. And did my subconscious mind forget, as I did again today, to press the on button?
Could be, I don't know.
It is a possibility that, sometimes there's so much stuff down in that subconscious that we have no idea what's down. Like you said with this client, they had no idea their fears that were there. Yeah,
your subconscious is literally like a cellar, like way down. And you just keep putting stuff down.
It's like a bad horror film down there.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and an invitation to consider is that part of what you had in place to protect that fear was the procrastination, the having to do it, the perfection, like I'm going to do it over and over and over till I get the one that I think is good enough that people will. And good for you, because the way that you stepped over that fear was just to say, screw it, I'm just going to put it up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let Dave hear, which might be the next step.
That is.
Yeah. Anyways, it's a good conversation. Like, for anyone that's listening, if they will just sit down, take a deep breath, quiet their mind for 30 seconds and ask themselves, what is the greatest fear that lives in my head? Yeah. You might have an oh shit moment.
Yeah, that's true. So the steps, kind of to summarize, one, the first one is acknowledgement or awareness.
Awareness first.
Yep. Okay. And then?
Well, it's a little different for each person. What would it be for you?
What would my next step be? I think I would probably, something my mom has taught me is, what's the worst thing that can happen? So whenever I have something that I'm scared of doing, I always try and figure out what the worst thing that could happen is. And then if I kind of accept that that's what could be bad, then I go, okay, I can deal with that. And then I move on. So that would be my process in the way that I do it.
Okay. So with fears, first and foremost, you've got awareness.
Yep.
Acknowledging it, sure, is important. Second is choice. And third and most important is deliberate action.
Okay.
So what am I going to do about this awareness and these choices that I have? Nothing. Okay, well, that's a choice. It's a disempowering choice, but it is a choice, right? We always say in coaching that you have 3 places to choose from. You can make a choice that's empowering, which is a really overused word, and we can have a conversation about that another time, but a choice that's empowering, a choice that's disempowering, and a choice that's neither, which inherently is disempowering. Mm-hmm. So it's awareness, potentially acknowledgement, choice, and deliberate action. I am declaring that I am going to take this step and nothing's going to get in the way.
Yeah.
That's how you get unstuck.
There you go. So it's just that easy, everybody.
It's that easy.
3 simple steps.
Gosh. If you can't do it on your own, call me at 1-800.
Actually,
Mia.
You can find Mia online at integratedlifestrategies.ca. You can also see her on Facebook.
Oh, I think this is a great conversation to lead into comfort zones.
Ah, yes. So join us next time on the Get Your Shit Together podcast, and we're going to talk about comfort zones. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, you betcha.
Excellent.
Thanks,
so
Sue.
That'll be next week, and please leave comments. If there's a topic that you'd like to hear more about, let us know, and we'll do some research and hopefully be able to bring that information to you.
Yay!
Yay! Have a super day!